Hey folks, this is Brian. We got to play Elderath last night. Very interesting session. So some feedback from Runt, his drug use and addiction. It's not very acute, and it affects his sanity. So long as he does not support his addiction, his sanity will continue to go down. He lost like 2 points or something like that already. And he's got about 4 months worth of this drug he's been playing with. Okay, so we're going en route to Telgar. We're traveling, just above the water. You know, they got that hydrofoil thing on the bottom of the ship kind of deal. So we're skimming through. We encounter some trading Nors as we're passing by cars. We have a second ship encounters with an Oklo ship, and it's intercepting us. And so at that point, we take altitude because we don't want to mess with anybody because we can't fight and fly the ship and do all the things we want to do anyway. And we get there, sure enough, it's got men and orcs, but they see us flying, so they just kind of continue on their way. But while we're up there, Raymond uses the telescope multivisor to look north and south. But to north, there's this mountain chain, and north of that is this desolate land. Volcanic formations, no trees, several plumes from active volcanoes. But that's not very striking compared to this massive canyon that's even further north. The next day, Wes is up there looking, and he sees that on the far side of this canyon is, in fact, a tower. A huge, huge tower that is in ruins. Um, Wes asks Thurmond about it. Apparently, that's Forg's castle. Thurmond recommends we go higher so we can get a better look at things. So Wes then comes down off the crow's nest because Thurmond's not going to be going up there. And so we go up to about 6,000 feet. He hands the telescope to Thurmond, and Thurmond's looking around. And Wes kind of proposes to Thurmond, hey, do you think the castle acts like one of the gate towers? He says it's possible, but has no idea. And also, there are two molten rivers that form deltas running down into the chasm on either side of the castle ruins. Wes makes a comment about the circles of stealth, and Thurmond corrects him. The circles of stealth came about after the destruction of Forg in order to safeguard dangerous artifacts from his time. Okay, the following day, we come across that super shipwreck with the 6 masts sticking up out of the water. And then we get into the Bay of Telgar, where we're met with a small boat who's flying a pennant of Tamara and the harbor master. We try to go towards him because we want to minimize any we're in the way, we're coming in kind of thing. But apparently that spooked the harbor master guy, the pilot, and so he's swerving out of the way and comes up on the side of the ship. And he's a bit haughty at first until Wes introduces himself and uses his titles. The pilot asks if we have seen some action because of our broken prow. Do you seek repairs in the city? Yes, we do. Also, we're looking for an appropriate crew to be able to sail this kind of lateen ship. He brings some of his crew aboard, and they drive us on into the naval port near the castle. We actually go through a gate. There's this merchant area first, and then a gate to the naval area, and we have to go through, and then the gate actually closes behind us. So we're at the castle of Telgar. City is impressive, as is the castle. The pier we tie off on is completely empty of people. There are guards at the end of it, and beyond them are some dock workers and that kind of stuff, and also some well-to-do kinds of folks just seeing what's going on. And beyond that are other docks and more watchers. Wes asked the pilot about where can we find sailors that can sail this kind of ship. We need to get repairs done. We need to find ways to get provisions to our guards. How do we work all this stuff out? And he recommends that any work to be done should first be coordinated with the engineers and the sail masters and the tinkers. And the harbor master oversees all this kind of stuff, but he doesn't really deal with it specifically. Okay, so we are heading down the pier. There's a group of 5 armed men. They're making their way through the crowd and onto our pier. And they speak with the pilot. Krim calls us back, so we're talking with Krim, and she asks, what do we do if someone wants to get aboard the ship? So there's a discussion back and forth. Oh, and all that's in the live play, by the way, in the description. About, don't let anybody on the ship. Well, not anybody. Okay, if somebody shows up with saying, if somebody shows up that we sent, they can get on board. Well, what if they just say, hey, what sent me? Okay, here's what we'll do. We'll write out, we will script out who this person is, why they're coming aboard, and that is okay, in Norse, sealed with Wes's signet ring. If they've got that, you can let them on board. Okay, she's feeling better now. Okay, so the rest of the party, we're all staying together. 2 of her soldiers gear up armor and weapons on either side of the ship. She's kind of walking patrol. She'll leave the 2 to rest so they can swap back and forth. As the 5 guards approach, the captain of the guard recognizes Wes. And there's a discussion there, and he recommends placing guards at the end of the pier to keep everybody off the pier, and on either side as well, to keep people away from getting close to the ship. No one's going to get on the pier without, the present company being accepted. So we take the captain, take him back to Krim. We introduce them to each other so they understand, here's my sphere of influence, here's your sphere of influence, we know who we are, don't mess with each other kind of thing. As we get back onto the docks, though, we pass through a crowd, and Raymond spots a nondescript dock worker with a dagger in his hand. He's attempting to attack Wes. Roll for initiative, kind of thing. What are you going to do? So, Raymond dodges in between Wes and the assailant. Wes turns and casts Hold Kind. Hjalmar is going to move in to grapple the assailant. That's pretty much all that was discussed. Okay, but anyway, Raymond gets in between, but then Raymond gets stabbed in the abdomen. 15 points of damage. At first I thought, that's like, God, that's insane. But then I think, well, maybe it was probably an impale, right? That's how you get that kind of damage, with an impale. But then Raymond had to also make a Constitution save, so this thing's poisoned as well. Wes was successful in his Hold Kind's casting, but he failed on the power versus power roll. It was like a 90 something. Just insane. Bad dice. Bad dice. The captain is a quick draw with his sword, but the assailant dodges and counters by attacking Wes, who again rolls like an 80 something, misses his dodge. He's got a pretty high dodge now that he's got Dylan inside. So he ended up taking 10 points of damage to the abdomen. He's not wearing the armor, so he's got like 2 points of cloth in his ring. So that puts his abdomen at like -2. So he drops down. But Wes also failed his resistance roll, so he begins to foam at the mouth. So Raymond casts healing on himself. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. They cast healing on Wes, and then cast some kind of counter poison. I forgot what it was called on Wes. It takes him 3 attempts to actually be successful in that casting. Raymond then tells the captain that Wes seems to be recovering, but let's get him someplace safe so we can do some more to take care of him. While this happened, Krim comes running down the pier and joins our entourage. The captain points to a couple of dock workers to carry a stretcher with Wes on it, and Krim says, "No, that's not happening." And she points to 2 guards, you and you. You carry Wes. She's like taking charge. Hjalmar actually offers to carry Wes. She says, "No, you guard him." And the captain, we got some perception rolls. Had thought about confronting Krim on these, countering his commands, but he decides against it. Kind of figure it might have to do with that paladin aura or something. Okay, so the alarm has been sounded. 10 more guards show up. That got crossbows and halberds, 2 with just sword and shield, and then their captain. They intercept our party. The guard was left with the body, so they send. This group sends 3 more down to go gather it up. There's also a priest of Sylvanus, makes his way to the party to assess what's going on, right? And he says, well, it looks like he was poisoned, but that seems to have been taken care of. And Raymond recognizes this guy from the Temple of Telgar. This priest is well respected within the priesthood at large. He does apply some more healing to Wes. Excuse me. Who is still unconscious. And they take him to the healing ward. Krim says, this is not acceptable. We need a private room. So eventually we do get a private room. And the captain posts 2 guards just outside the room. And so outside the room, then all the rest of us are inside the room. And Raymond and Helmar are discussing effects of the events. When outside the room, there's a commotion. So Raymond sticks his head out, and Lady Tamara is coming into the ward, working her way towards us. And Raymond sees this orb circling around Lady Tamara's head. The first thing I thought it was an ion stone, but it was not an ion stone. He recognized it, though, as a Forerunner artifact. He recalls that there's this Carillion commander who has one of these things. Okay, so Lady Tamara peers into the room. Raymond introduces everyone. When it comes to Krim, though, Lady Tamara appraises her carefully. And she says, I see that Wes is in good hands. And then she tells Raymond that she expects Raymond to see to Wes's safety. And then she seems a little bit more relaxed than when she first arrived. And then she leaves. A bit later, a page comes right in. I'm looking for someone named Raymond. I've been instructed to relay any communication to the court. He says, good. We'll find a place. And he grabs, all right, here. Grabs a chair, sits down in the room, and sits down. And he's just waiting. I'll be here for any needs or requirements your party has. Okay, so Raymond mentions this Imperial Orb. Once Wes becomes conscious, Raymond mentions the Imperial Orb, and there's, holy crap, that's a Forerunner device kind of thing, right? And Raymond relays the events. As things are going, Krim's got a frown on her face. We need to be more careful. And then Raymond tells the runner to go let Lady Tamara know that Wes is up now. Okay, so Wes is up. He's been completely healed. There does not seem to be any residual effects of the poison, but the physical body still needs to recuperate itself, right? So we take a carriage to Wes's apartment, and there are 3 guards there. Sir Michael has directed us to provide protection. There's some discussion on, okay, what does that really mean? Because it doesn't need to be too much, but do what you need to do. So they set up a patrol outside, and then there are 2 inside, so they can rotate through. Okay, so Wes gets words out to his servants. We eventually show up, and they start restocking the apartment. They run baths for everybody. And we get a tailor's summons so we can make clothes for everybody, because we're going to have to go have an official court visit with Lady Tamara sometime soon. But she's going to give us time to get ready. So Wes writes Raymond and Hjalmar a pass so they can return to the noble quarter of the city, because they are going through into the merchant area to get to the city temple. I also sent a note to the ship, letting them know that Krim is okay. She's with us for now. And return once our immediate visitation requirements are complete. So Raymond and Hjalmar move out in the merchant quarter, which is like its own little city. It's got its own militia, it's got its own temple, and it's got its own set of crypts. Crypts, like for the dead. Raymond goes to the temple. He's checking on his tapestry first, which is, by the way, done, and then asks about getting appropriate vestments for an imperial visit. And then he's going to help Hjalmar along his path. So Hjalmar's trying to work out what he needs to do or what he can do with respect to progressing towards becoming a paladin. There are 2 noble groups, the priesthood with the church, and the secular area with the Lords of Bloodstone. To become a paladin, you need to be sponsored. You need to be squired. There's a process from one of these two noble groups. Typically, paladins are like guards for priests and leaders of the church, that kind of thing, right? So first, you need to be recognized as a sponsor or squire by one of these two groups. You need to be taught certain etiquettes which come out of a devotion to your deity, and part of this recognition on the part of the deity as well. Right? The critical piece is not necessarily what people think or recognize, but what the deity decides. It requires certain devotions and attributes required by the deity, right? So then there's two scales. One is the proximity to the deity, and the second is recognition as from the part of the priesthood or the noble class, right? Obviously, the deity outweighs the other, but you need to get buy-in from both sides, technically. So Raymond takes Hjalmar to go see the bishop, Francis. And after some pleasantries, he asks Raymond about, you've been away for some time, because Raymond was recently sent to Hamlet on a mission there. There was something doing with the priest there. He ended up being killed or something, or going missing, and so he got involved with that. He's supposed to be reporting back from Hamlet to the church here about what's been going on out there. He said, I hope all is well. And he says, we've had challenges, but the gods have smiled upon us. And he'd like to introduce my friend Hjalmar, who has been supportive in the battle with the forces of good. And Hjalmar makes a power times 1 roll. So Raymond gets this sensation that someone is calling to him, but it is fleeting. But he can see the bishop is looking at Hjalmar in a very odd way. His attention is wholly present, but it's focused on something else, like he's assessing something. And he says, courage refers not only to physical bravery in battle, but... And then he waits. And Hjalmar, I recognize that's from the shield. But he didn't remember. So he tried to see the player didn't remember, so he tried to see if Hjalmar remember, and he fumbled his memory roll. Rolled a 98. So Raymond's got this spell where he remembers all this stuff, and so he prompts Hjalmar and repeats the statement from that spell. And the bishop says, I recognize you. Oh, he says it to Raymond. He says to Raymond, I recognize you. And he says, I have not completed all the necessary ceremonies, so I felt not to. It has to do with reference to being a priest of Lorath. Okay. And then Francis says, will you sponsor him? Raymond says, he is brave and devoted. Yes, I will. Okay, you can enroll him in with our list of squires. Raymond bows, thanks the bishop for his confidence in him. Says, I will see to the other issues. The bishop Francis says, welcome, Hjalmar. Hjalmar says, thank you, Father, and bows, and then they take their leave. Okay, so a couple days go by to get clothes made. And some more days go by as we recover, trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to do next? So Wes decides, let's go do a personal visit with Lady Tamara. Let's go do that. Sir Michael is there, and we discuss the ship. That was the big thing, right? But Wes also wants to talk about the politics and the situation with Karst in the Eastern Isles. They bring up a chest, she pulls out a flag that has her house heraldry on it, a flag with Wes's house heraldry quartered with hers, and a pennant of Telgar. So when we start flying this stuff on the ship, everybody's going to know, leave these people alone. Yay, that's what we wanted. And she mentioned about, having not inspected the ship yet. Like she is going to do it herself kind of thing, and we say that, it's damaged but not beyond repair. And we talk about some politics at this point. So to the east, there's Aklo, Gib, and Minok, and they all fall underneath the control of Goldak. Any attempt to send ships through the straits over to Karst would be disastrous. There'd be a loss such that it would not justify the risk. And then she pulls out this map, a really cool map. And the GM's got a map on our Owlbear Rodeo thing, so he starts opening up areas we can see. It's really kind of cool. And we could transport overland. To transport overland to the north would be just especially difficult with all the fjords and mountain ranges and stuff. I got here about Molag. Molag is the real power in the east, and it would take significant resources not only of Telgar and the colonies, but of Zig as well, in order to actually attempt to deal with them. There is a northern route, much further north, but there's lots of ice there and giants. Um, if there's some kind of alternative way, perhaps we could do something to make a reconnection with Kars and the Eastern Isles. And she asked about, what are the issues happening in Kars? We mentioned the sea serpents, the Drow, the Forgish armies coming from the north. And that caught her attention. She said, yeah, that's an issue we're going to need to deal with. Okay, so we make our way down the ship, and it's not a huge entourage. It's Sir Michael, Lady Tamara, a couple of guards, and us. That's it, right? And she is going to have a shipwright come with us when we actually get to the pier. He is old. He doesn't see very well. But as we get to the ship and he's looking at the lines, he whispers something to Lady Tamara and seems quite agitated, like he's taken with the ship. And he starts taking into account everything they cannot reproduce here. How do we get this thing out? We can't do anything of this. This is too big. How can we do that? That kind of stuff, right? And we're discussing things using technological terms. And they seem to be paying attention, but don't seem to understand as we use these technological terms, right? But the shipwright does ask deeper questions, digging into what we're trying to say. And then Wes mentions something in English. Then he hears in his head, why are you using that language? And he's thinking it's Lady Tamara. And it actually may have been. And Wes thinks back to understand our relationship. He says, well, you're cousins. That's right, it is Lady Tamara. We are cousins. And he says, no, with the Forerunners. And at that, she looks up at the orb. And then to Wes. And Wes says, yes. And then Wes hears in his head, speak true. Is your mother so-and-so? Is your father so-and-so? And a handful of things about his background and stuff like that. And he answers as truthfully as he remembers. And so she starts looking at the ship now with a new set of eyes, right? And says, do you mean the ancients? As in the dwellers in the valley of the ancients? There's a time before the time of... There was a time before Forg. And there was a great desolation that occurred. The orb is from that time. So is this craft from that time? And Wes says, no, not exactly. I can remember another place, another time, where this ship came from. I have met a Forerunner, and their abilities are well beyond this ship. Well, when Wes says that, time stops. Well, for Wes. And he hears a different voice in his head. It's the orb. And it says, form the key of dominion. And then as pause, he's waiting, right? It says, speak your name in the ancient tongue. And Wes says, I don't know the ancient tongue. I do know that this planet is a device built to destroy other worlds. And the voice says, you have awakened, but cannot access the deep knowledge. And Wes says, that is correct. And he says, who do you serve? All servitor races serve. Who do you serve? And Wes says, I serve the Forerunner known to me as Maliki. And then it says, the enemy from outside remains a threat. You must awaken the deep knowledge to continue your fight. Learn to form the key of passage to gain access to the Hall of Mirrors. And then in some postscript stuff going on, because they're not necessarily words, right? They're thoughts and feelings kind of deal, right? In visions. In this Hall of Mirrors and this key of passage, the key of passage and the key of domain linked together, same sort of thing, which is also the pattern of dominion from the circles of Stalth that we've heard before. So they're tied to this in some way. And the Hall of Mirrors is similar to the infinite corridor that the ship's captain's journal talks about. And then it says termination communication, and then time returns to normal. Massive, massive dump. Oh man, that was wild. Okay, so how do we fix the mast? Yeah, they want to use brute force to get out. No, no, no. We'll talk to the ship. It's a magic ship. We'll talk to the ship. It will tell us how to get this out, how to take the mast out, and we can get the dimensions for and that kind of stuff. And Lady Tamara says, I have a use for this ship as well, and this is something that Raymond I know was paranoid about, and I wasn't too worried, but obviously it would come up. We could use it to transport troops to cars. And then the shipwright says, there's something hidden on this ship. You can get rid of all this furniture stuff. We can save 15, 20 tons of cargo space here, Lady Tamara. Okay, so Lady Tamara asks if you can transport grain on the ship. And he says, sure. We just board up that door and board up this place. And but the first thing is to get the ship repaired. We need you to work with. They need us to work with the ship and the shipwright to make everything gets done correctly. But meanwhile, the issue of the potential invasion from four glands needs some serious attention. And she asks if we need anything more from her. And, not from her directly, but we do need to find sailors who we trusted and that can file this Lantine ship. And at that, the shipwright takes issue. It's not a Lantine ship. He calls it something else. Whatever. Okay, Runt is paranoid and is hiding out in Wes's apartment because the upright man, and for that matter, the day man, the night man, and the spider have eyes in many places. So he's going to stay in and hide out. He doesn't want to be seen. So we give the directions on how to release the mast. There's some clamps, that kind of thing. We give the dimensions of the actual spar itself. We need to apparently there are spare sails on board, which we didn't realize beforehand. So we got spare sails we can set up instead of having to actually have new sails made. And we'll actually use the ship, which can fly, to transport to the proper forest where there's going to be the proper kind of tree to make the proper mast for this thing. Because they're going to have to get an old, straight tree to get something big enough for this. And that's where we ended. We did all this in-between stuff, getting the dimensions, getting the ship repaired. It's going to take about a month. So we end up at month 5, which is Czar, week 2, day 3, which is like 2 days away from Wes getting to roll for a strength increase. Yeah. And that's where the session ended, although if you're listening to the live play, you'll find that we continue to chatter on for quite some time. I forgot to shut the recording off. Oh, by the way, there's actually 2 recordings because we paused at one point, and instead of restarting, I shut it down, the first one down. So it is what it is. Happy gaming.